This is episode 214 of Come On You Reds, the official Toronto FC podcast. And the good news is we're back for another year of Toronto FC football. Gareth Wheeler alongside the lovable one, Toronto FC legend, and that legend is continuing to grow before our eyes, the one, the only Terry Dunfield, as we look ahead to Toronto FC in the Champions League, the busy offseason that was, and look ahead to a new campaign full of promise and potential. What's up, Dunfield? How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Really good. Living quarantine life, but other than that, all good. Excited for the year ahead. Busy week.
You might need to explain to some of our listeners, because while I've been stuck here at home, growing out my hockey hair, I haven't had a haircut since October. You've been gallivanting across the globe representing this country. As Academy coach, Terry Dunfield became Canada Under-23 coach, well, part of that coaching staff at the Olympic qualifiers. Congratulations, well done. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was incredible. By the way, your hair looks great.
No,
I love the little curls at the back here.
It's awful.
Speaking of which.
I'm going Dave Mustaine, by the way, like Megadeth days. So you just took the razor to it. Just get sick of the hair.
I did. Well, I got the Harry from Dumb and Dumber shout when I was at camp, and that was like the last straw. So it was But
what was the experience like, Terry?
Yeah, it still hurts. It still stings a little bit that we didn't quite get there, but it was incredible. Lots of takeaways. Probably the biggest one was the Olympics are special, and they only come around so often. And as a player, maybe if you're a young guy playing up, you might get 2 cracks at it, but you only get 1 crack at it. And that was probably the biggest priority of the coaching staff, is letting the players know that it was a transformative experience. And if we could get there, it's life-changing. And I remember trying to get to Greece in 2004 as a player, and it was just kind of like another game. And you didn't realize how big it was. And we showed some video of the women's team at the Olympics in London, some of our top athletes competing. And I think the players started to realize just how special this opportunity was. And it really brought us together. It was challenging because we were out of season, and right player, right time became really difficult. We only had 5 days to really prep for our first game against El Salvador. But our sports scientists and that sort of team did a wonderful job. Guys really pushed themselves and started to feel it as the tournament went on. But it was a challenge, and that's how we looked at everything. And the game plan was to grow throughout that tournament. And the group stages, for the most part, when as planned, and we had opportunities to even win the group wheels.
Well, Canada, unlike other countries, was waging a war on multiple fronts, with plenty of under-23 talent unavailable because they were with John Herdman and the men's national team trying to qualify for the World Cup, which for obvious reasons is taking priority right now. And a little bit disappointing based upon the COVID outbreak, and we're going to get into all of this when it comes to Toronto FC, that the TFC boys, the whole crew of them, a whole group of very good young players who could have contributed to that group, just were unavailable to go. I mean, that's a game changer in itself, considering the really good young talent coming through TFC and how they could have added to that squad, Terry. That for me was the most disappointing part.
Yeah, and I'd say it crossed our minds once we went out of the tournament, but in the moment, that's an easy excuse to go to, and we weren't going to go there. And I think TFC had their reasons. Look, a new manager's come in. There was the game against Forge, which ended up not happening. There was, you said, the COVID outbreak. So I get where Ali and Chris Armas' head was at, and it's important that we move on. And Mauro Biello did a fantastic job of that. Then you look over to the first team, and it's a little bit similar to how England are right now. A.D. Bothroyd came out about the under-21s and saying how tough a job that is when he sees all the young stars with the England team. And that's just a priority, is getting our Canadian men's team to the World Cup. But it was the challenge just made it all that sweeter. It led to more laughs. It made it difficult navigating through the group, and you had to really trust in your squad, giving one or two an opportunity. they really came and took it. It's just difficult to go out the way we did against Mexico.
Well, a good experience for you. Looks like you have a pretty decent setup going for quarantine. So the best of luck getting through it. At least we have plenty of football to watch. I mean, that was honestly, nothing is new with me. I am so boring since we last left. Much like many of you out there who just really, you're still treading water. But the amount of football that I've watched is absolutely incredible. And calling the Canada games in the World Cup qualifiers, including a goal scored by Richie Larea, that was fun. That's been my highlight thus far.
Did you see 11 goal calls?
Amazing. I wish it was 12. I wish it was 13, 14.
My one personal story, though, that was almost tough times was because of COVID protocols and some of the guys being stuck up in the room for a little bit or picking up knocks. My role led to being a player as well. So I got to put the boots back on and I joined in every training session, which was incredible until the feeling after. But I got the call up for the big inter squad game. And 60 minutes into the game, I'm full player mode. I'm not thinking coach. And Mauro Biello's telling me stories about how guys trained hard to get Didier Drogba right. And, it's important. It was like an 80-20 ball with Tejan Buchanan for me. There's no way I'm thinking he's going to get there. And I put the boots through the poor guy. I almost put our star player out for the tournament. But fortunately, he was okay. That was a tough moment, though.
Were you thinking Tejan Buchanan, New England Revolution, or Tejan Buchanan, Canada? There's a distinct difference there.
We became mates. He was like Tejan Buchanan from Brampton, and he's like the nicest guy ever and such a good player. And there was like blood going down his shin. I was just like, no, are you kidding me?
Well, some things don't change. Terry Dunfield being Terry Dunfield. Well, not much has changed in my life. Plenty has changed in Toronto FC land. Most notably, the coaching staff since we last left you has completely been turned upside down. I guess the last man standing is goalkeeping coach John Conway. As Greg Vanney announced that he was leaving the club, he brought his staff along with him, inevitably lands with the Galaxy. Chris Armas and a new staff, including Ian Russell, are in with Toronto FC. I'm not sure shocked is the right word to use about Vanney leaving. I think that there was always the hope that he was going to stay here long-term. But once that Galaxy job became available, understanding his past, understanding what he's already done here, perhaps the opportunity to go on and create something else in a place that means a whole lot to him, family considerations as well. Perhaps it was inevitable after all. First, let's start with Vanney and just, kind of putting an end to that chapter. Then we'll look ahead to the Chris Armas era, because I know that you worked with Greg extensively in your coaching, Terry, and his methods and just the man that he was from as a professional and on a personal level meant a whole lot to you.
It did, and it was nice. A couple of days before it came out, he gave me a call. I was just walking around Rosedale doing my loop with Afton, and Greg Vanney calls, and Afton, it's Greg. And I always had that relationship with him where it was like, okay, I got to be on my best behavior. Watch what you say. I always got a little bit uptight around him and really looked up to Greg. And not only was he such a good person, but he was a really good teacher. And he'd give you just enough to help you get there. But it was on you to go and figure it out. And, I think that's my biggest takeaway from him is he never really gave me the answers, but he helped me kind of get there. And then whatever I learned, it really stuck. And, I think no one will begrudge him moving on to LA, to the Galaxy. And we wish them all the best. I'm sure we'll be looking at their results and hoping that they do well until we meet them in the final, hopefully. But it's, right. I coached his kids as well, became close with Dylan and Mason, two very good young footballers. He did more than just look after the first team. He set up the whole academy and he really gave us the tools to carry on his legacy. And yes, there'll be tweaks and there'll be some best practices from Chris Armas and his learnings throughout his career that we'll take on board and we'll continue to adapt. And, but it's, he's probably, of all the coaches, including my 17-year playing career, the most I've really learned from and really understanding the game and how it's played.
I thought I was the only one that he called a couple days before, but he called me
Makes you
too.
feel like that.
I feel a little bit less special. No, but that's the kind of guy that he was. And we don't need to list off all the accolades and what he accomplished because, quite frankly, he set the bar, right? Like he has helped set the bar for every coach from now until eternity that leads Toronto FC out onto the field. And that's the biggest compliment that you can pay to a guy who came into a club that really didn't have a winning tradition, a winning history, winning mentality before he got here. From top to bottom, his fingerprints are all over it. So we wish him the best of luck, but the best of luck in the Western Conference, and he'll understand that as well.
Story on him, Wheels. It was funny. He's just a proper coach, and he's got no time for the BS and all the accolades, and he'll enjoy it maybe for a night. But he told me a story about how he never would hang up a jersey. He'd never hang up a photograph in his house. And as he was telling me this story, I just got in my Man City jersey. It was just going up on the wall, but it was his way of saying, I'm never going to get comfortable. I'm never going to get safe. On to the next play. And that's just how he operates.
Well, seeing him, be emotional, almost in tears when saying goodbye to Toronto. I mean, it was just something that I haven't personally ever experienced with him. He was always a guy like through my cancer battle, and I went through very serious cancer treatment over the course of covering this team when he was the head coach. He would regularly seek me out and ask me how I was doing. I remember one time just outside the training ground, he just ran up to me and stopped me. He's like, I sat on a plane with a melanoma doctor and I started talking about you and learning about like, he didn't have to do that. He just went out of his way to kind of make sure that, that I understood that, things go beyond the pitch and beyond the game. So, and look, it would have been great to think that, someone like Vanny would be a lifer at Toronto FC. It simply doesn't happen in the footballing world today, does it, Terry? Like the club has lost a lot of great people over recent months, and not just talking about the coaching staff who did a wonderful job, but sports science, Mike Massero, PR, he's left the club. It's just inevitable that change is going to continue to happen. But again, as long as the conditions are set up the right way, you just kind of pick up where things left off and you get on with it, right?
You do, and I'd say it can bring a little bit of freshness. And going back to how we started this conversation, I don't think there was a ton of surprise when he his team followed him, especially that first team technical staff.
So Chris Armas comes in as head coach, and speaking about freshness, I mean that's the perfect segue, because speaking with this guy, with this man, a 48-year-old former player. He makes me want to run through a wall. Like it's just a completely different mentality than what Greg Vanny brought to the table. They're both great at what they do, but they go about it in a much different way. So I think that's what Toronto FC fans can expect to experience here over the first portion of this season. Is that freshness, is a enthusiasm, perhaps opportunity for some players who are maybe on the outside looking in, for them to step up and really find their legs in this team. There was over 150 applicants for the job. It was wielded down to 3, and Bill Manning, Ali Curtis landed on Chris Armas. What are your initial thoughts about Armas thus far in this job, the hire in general, and what the former Red Bulls head coach brings to Toronto FC?
I think similar to Greg, and that's part of our culture at TFC, is he's a fantastic person. He's a family man. He's got a couple of sons. And I think he hasn't come in with a bulldozer to say, look, I want to change everything. I think he's got clear ideas of how the game should look in particular moments. But I think he wants to build on the work that Greg has already done. And, I don't think it's a complete rebuild. But there will definitely be changes. The words that come to mind are intensity. I think he'll wear his heart on his sleeve. You'll know exactly how he's feeling. I think opportunity comes to mind. I think it's normal that when a new manager comes in, that players and staff, it's almost like a clean slate a little bit. There's a little bit of credit which will have been built from before, and I'd imagine Chris Armas has an idea of what a player's like, but you could see maybe a different starting 11. And, his style of play, which we'll get into in a sec, it will be a little bit different from Greg's, and it might suit one or two players as well.
It's kind of funny how these things play out. There were so many rumors, names linked to the job, big names in world football as well, Terry. Patrick Vieira, Laurent Blanc, a number of different individuals. So when a Chris Armas is hired, it's almost unfair on the new head coach if he doesn't come with the glitz and the glam of world footballing acclaim. Although he does have credibility in his own backyard and the likes of Jesse Marsch, an individual who's doing very well coaching in Europe right now. He's a disciple from the Jesse Marsch school. So there's a lot of positive. And what was kind of mentioned to me, and it's so clear that if Toronto FC wanted to keep the mentality that the club has, this all for one, really kind of pick up where Vanny left off and carry on, that wouldn't have been attainable if you went in and brought in some massive name from across the globe who'd want to bring in 11, 15, 20 people of their own and basically turn the club upside down. I think the decision was made that this club's in a pretty good place based upon where they finished last season, despite all the roadblocks, playing every game essentially away from home, albeit for the Canadian Championship games. So the decision was made, consistency rather than flip this thing upside down. I think it's important to point out that Armas, some people might be like, well, it's not so-and-so, or is that it's not so-and-so. That doesn't mean that he's not the right man for the job.
Yeah, I like that consistency. And I think he nailed it. I think there's a relationship already there with Ali Curtis. When I saw his name first hit the media, I was like, wow, this is a really good fit. I think you've got a fighter. It's going to get hard. It's a different year still with COVID. You're away from home. Whether the players like it or not, they're going to be running and working hard. And it's going to bring an exciting brand of soccer. We're going more to Liverpool than maybe from Manchester City. But I think it's a perfect fit for where we're at right now. And I'm excited to see this brand of soccer and also learn his methodology and how you teach this game as well. We've been lucky. We've had kind of the Pep style. Now we're going to go over to the kind of Red Bull's Klopp style. And I think Chris alluded to it in his initial press conference that we'll kind of find a middle ground. Having watched the Columbus game, I think we're way over on the other side, and we're going to see a high pressing vertical team that really gets after it.
Yeah, it's these are the things that I've absolutely picked up on, and things that he has said, and from the little bit of behind the curtain I've been able to be exposed to thus far. Bill Manning, Ollie Curtis, both signed extensions. They'll be staying at this club, forming the leadership group. We'll deal more with them next week as we look ahead for our MLS preview, as we got to look ahead to the Concacaf Champions League on this episode. But it's worth mentioning some of the players who have moved on. No big fish landed, no big name additions to this club as of yet. But players like Laurent Simon have moved on from this team. Terry, what do you make of what Toronto FC has done over the course of this offseason, the lack of player movement in, and some fairly popular faces and names going out?
I'd say we've gotten a little bit younger, and there's no big surprise to that. I think Simon has been probably deserves more credit than what he maybe gets from the fan base. I think some of the little things he does day to day, how he stepped in the playoffs, I think he nailed his role for what he was brought in to get. Yeah, it was expensive, but I think him going to Montreal, joining their technical staff is a good fit for him, and everybody wins. I was listening to Pep Guardiola talk about Haaland this week. I'm sure he heard it, just saying how crazy the market is right now. And, if Man City are saying, look, we're hurt financially, I'm sure, there's been effects here at TFC. And if they can't afford a player like that, then, I think we've got to be careful. And unless the perfect number 9 comes up that we're looking for and it's a good fit economically, then, let's not force it. And we've signed DPs in the past that haven't worked out. And if you do get your DPs right, Jovinko, Altidore, Bradley, I mean, you can make a huge difference, but let's not force things. And I don't think it's been for a lack of effort. I I'm sure Ali in the front office and Jack are crazy busy right now. It's difficult not to meet people in person as well. But
that's what, sorry to cut you off. That's what's being told to me in any kind of recruitment process. If a player's trying to decide between Toronto FC and another team, oftentimes coming up, seeing our facilities, what's being cultivated, what's being built here in Toronto, that's kind of like the slam dunk, right? That's the final shot.
Our concierge team is second to none, and how we look after players here. And as you said, we haven't been able to show that and sort of jump in there. And I think two wheels, like once you get in a room with someone, you know in 2 minutes how invested they are in our project, or whether they're maybe using our offer as leverage.
That's what I was going to say from a player's perspective, in terms of them being able to make a decision based on a place where they've never been before. It's a big decision to make. And on top of that, TFC wants to make sure that they have the proper feel for whatever player that they're trying to bring in as well. So it hasn't happened yet. That DP spot was opened up because Pablo Piatti has gone out. He's left the club. I think it's inevitably the right decision. He was more of a player that you want to keep on a regular contract, not a DP contract, Terry. So there's one of two directions TFC can go. They can go for that established, big name, what you're going to get to add to this already experienced group, or you go with a player that, maybe like a Pozuelo that you want to keep here for the next 5 years and allow that player to build into the team. Which route would be preferable for you? The big established name, or the player that you're going to kind of grow with over the next, the upcoming years?
I'd say for the last 15 minutes, I've been the leadoff hitter here. Why don't you go first?
Me? I was asking you. I prefer asking the questions. Listen, unless it is a name that's going to, I know that some people will be like, Wheeler, we're not at that point anymore. But I think there's something about big name players coming to Major League Soccer, making their mark both on and off the field. There's something about just a big splash, bringing the name that's going to be in the headlines each and every week to draw more attention to the club. I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't think that's a bad thing for Major League Soccer as well. But you got to be careful on who that player is. If that player is available, I think you splash the cash and go for him. But if not, then I think that going for a project, a player that can grow in this team, and we've said it before, Terry, this team needs to get younger. I think it will organically this year. I don't think it's a bad option either. So, I hate sitting on the fence, but I'm right on it right now.
You are so
I'm right on it right now. That's why I was asking you.
My follow-up was give me a name, but I'm not even going to go there. I'd say now, on the back of the work in the last 5 years, we've got to make it to conference finals. We've got to be in the shout with trophies. We've got to go deep in the Canadian championships, and which probably isn't too hard where we start, but there's a pressure on TFC now to win trophies. And sometimes when you go a little bit younger and you're going on potential, there's a little bit of risk to that, and you're not 100% sure where that potential is going to go. And we've got the facilities and the coaching staff and the players to develop it, but that doesn't necessarily equal trophies. And so I'd be surprised if we went there. I'd be excited if we went there, and it'd be great for our young Canadians to have a top operator at a similar age to just understand his habits and see him play. And there were some names thrown out when Greg was here in his last year that never quite got over the line. Where I think the club goes is in that sweet spot of 25 to, or maybe even a bit younger, 23 to 27, somewhere in there. I don't think we go old. I think it's got to be a player that nails Chris Armas' system and style of play, and really can drive his game model from the field. And so I'd probably say it's an athletic player, a box-to-box type midfielder, or a pure goal scorer at the top.
Well, that's it.
But a pure goal scorer is expensive, and a goal scorer in their prime, I'm not sure, just with the constraints of MLS and salary cap, and it's tough to bring in a top number 9 that's flying under the radar.
But that's why it might not be a player that's under the radar. I don't think that they need another midfielder, to be honest with you, with the young players coming through. They need more goals in the team. Now, if Josie Altidore, and we're going to get into this just in a moment, if he can be that reliable, goal scorer, goal contributor that he has been, if Ayo Akinola can take another step forward, then you're looking pretty decent. You can always use more goals in the team. And last year for me, Terry, there's too much of a reliance on Alejandro Pozuelo providing those goals in his MVP season. That can't be the case. He's more of a provider rather than that out-and-out goal scorer. So they're clearly on a hunt for a goal scorer, but the position I'm actually surprised that they haven't addressed or haven't been able to address is center back. That's where the team is thinnest at this present time. Gonzalez, Mavinga, Zavaleta, a couple of the young players. It's just a position where I think that this team, sooner rather than later, is going to have to add another player.
Yeah, it's you sparked some thoughts, and now you're thinking like maybe we need a winger, and have we brought in that left back for cover? So it's I'd say center back's a big one, and I think you need a center back that can defend overloads, that can defend in space, that is comfortable running out into channels, that can defend the penalty box on his own at times, that can play vertically. And that's not cheap either. So I get that argument for sure. I'm sure it's on the radar. And I think maybe, with some of the transfer windows closing now, maybe it's let's see how the first 5 games go, assess our squad and go from there.
Well, look, and with those names I just mentioned at that position, those are good players. But I'm looking at games Wednesday, Saturday. Like, injuries are inevitable if TFC wants to play this style. There's been durability questions about some of the players in the team from previous seasons. It's just a position that, for me, that always has to be a position of strength. And as long as Gonzalez and Mavinga are on the field, it's probably still a position of strength. But I just look at that to be the other area, other than that goal scorer DP, that this team will need to bring in either now or in the summer months. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you go down MLS Cup winners in the last 5 years, Seattle, us, Atlanta, that spine of the team, those center backs have all been excellent.
So let's get into Concacaf Champions League Wednesday night. I can't wait already. TFC with the most difficult draw in the Champions League. That's something that I think that we're used to around these parts. They get Club Leon in the first stage of this competition. It's going to be home or away and home matches. So by home, I mean Orlando, Florida. Away in Leon, come playing at Elevation, your first match of the year, against the team that won the Mexican League last season, and now a group that's won 3 games in a row on the trot. Oh, and by the way, TFC's training camp may have been open since February 17th, but they've only probably trained about 60% of that time because of COVID outbreaks in the team and other roadblocks have been thrown their way. So this is not the easiest.
Give me the good news now, man. What's the good news?
It's not. Well, the good news is that TFC football's back, but this isn't the warmest introduction for Chris Armas and TFC to kick off this new season and this new regime, is it?
No, it's bringing me back to Guadalajara being at the Olympics. There's some stuff against them for sure, but I'm sure you can switch the mindset and frame it as togetherness, team spirit. Everyone's going to be relied upon, and if we're going to go down to Leon and get something from that game, everything has to be right. And you almost invigorate, like this spidey sense starts to come up. And, I've probably most of my career been up against it, but when you play those big dogs away from home and it's going to be tough, you can dig a little bit deeper and you can't do it on your own. That collective piece is going to be important and really trusting in his new identity. And we saw that against Columbus when it got hard. No one went back to their crappy golf swings or how it used to be before. That they continued and in our new identity and got stronger as the game went on. But it is going to be tough.
Before we get into Lyon, let's talk about that new identity, what we've learned from those 2 preseason matches. The team wants to play a lot more direct, high energy, win the ball back, play it through the channels. These are the things that Chris Armas has said time and time again. I think by virtue of winning a game emphatically, I believe it was 4-1 against Columbus, that starts to get players buying in, doesn't it, Terry? Like, that's the thing here. If the players are sold, bought in, willing to work for this manager from the get-go, then that could mean good things. And perhaps this change of play can catch some of these teams, namely Lyon, by surprise, because the talent is certainly there, right? Like, this isn't a team that's going to be running about, absolutely in a crazy way. These are very talented players that are simply being asked to augment or change the way they play just a little bit.
Yeah. Belief, trust come to mind, these words. And once that mindset's right, and the players are clear, I think they're then able to get after it. And what we'll see is in possession, a team very positive in possession. The wide players come in, we overload the middle of the park and look to slice and dice teams as quick as we can. And if we can't go forward, well, it's a backwards or sideways pass to then go forward. And I think there's a little bit less decision making, but you know exactly what your role is and what your teammate's going to do even before that ball comes in possession. And there'll be a lot of density in the middle of the field. We'll overload them, and then you've got 2 wide players that'll provide our width that'll dominate those flank areas. All the best to those guys. They'll need some recovery after the game, but it's an exciting brand of soccer. And then if maybe possession's lost in the middle of the field, you're in good places to counter press, go and get that ball back again, and then you just start that cycle over and over again. And quicker touches on the ball,
more with purpose. That, like, oftentimes what Greg Vanney teams were so good at doing is exposing weakness in their opponent and breaking that down systematically. I don't think that this will be the case under Armas. Perhaps I'll be surprised, but I think it's a team that's willing to take more chances, want to be more aggressive in the middle of the park, want to set the tone and play more rock style football. Do you think that's the best way of putting it?
Yeah. And I think we've covered the attacking side, but then on the defensive side, you're still attacking. You're still in control. And whether it's a high press, middle block, or low block, you're the protagonist, and your reactions to go and press, that almost sets off the next guy. And there's lots of high intensity running. But the game plan will be to turn that ball over in good areas. And then when the opposition is a little bit disorganized, take advantage of that when they're not set. And then you've got the best player in the league in Pozuelo in that almost Sasha Kljestan role, who should be open to set up attacks. And on paper, it sounds great. We saw it against Columbus. So as you said, there's belief, there's trust now. But it's going to go to a whole nother level. As you said, Lyon are undefeated in 3. They're 13 games into this part of their season. And there's a ton of attacking flair, rotations, movement. After watching the game last night, I just shut my eyes and saw green Lyon players just running everywhere with tons of quality. Yeah,
you'll see them play, and it's almost like positionless football at times, the way that Lyon plays. Their central midfield players, Montez and Navarro, number 10 and number 5 respectively, I don't even know what position they're playing, Terry. They're just all over the place. Montez, the captain, is 34 years old. He looks like he's 24 out there. Like, the movement is incredible in this team. And, well, that might be their strength, that level of unpredictability, the ability to shift and move and keep on moving and keep you guessing. At the back, that might be their greatest weakness, because it really doesn't create much balance in their team. And there could be some real opportunity to expose a back line that's kind of all over the shop at times. There isn't much structure there at all.
Yeah, well said. It actually, their attacking organization starts to look a little bit like TFC. They've got 2 center backs that sit back, a 6 in front. Their right back actually comes in like Cancelo at Man City. So they've got 4 in the middle of the field. As you said, Montez and Navarro are top operators. Montez just goes and hunts the ball. He goes wherever he wants. The team kind of moves around him. Their wide players play so the right sided guy's a left footer. Their left sided guy's a right footer. They look to run in behind. They give you a bit of depth. Their 9 comes underneath, and their fullbacks just bomb forward and leave their 2 center backs and 6 to basically be their balance. And there is opportunities. I think all the rotations and movements, if we get our structure right, will lead to opportunities in transition. My thinking waking up this morning is either you press the life out of them or sit in a low block and counter. My concern would be is if we sit in that middle block, that there's some space that could be exposed. But it's going to be an exciting game. The kitchen sink's going to come in the first 20 minutes. But if we can weather that storm, there'll be opportunities. And where we do get our rest is when the ball goes out of play, we frustrate them. And if we can get into their half, that's where they kind of recover in their set defense, and we can keep the ball there.
My biggest concern is just overall fitness. You're playing at elevation.
Oh yeah,
Terry. Your first game against a year. Like honestly, that I think that if it was mid-season form, like you want this, like this could be an incredibly entertaining game based upon the way that these two teams are going to be set out to play. Like this could be absolutely like a box office event come Wednesday night. But it's just it's going to be a real test on TFC to see where they're at, and that's why we wanted to see the Canadian Championship played already so badly. Obviously, with the province, just not opening up, with Forge not getting permission, this is unfortunately the reality that they're all facing right now. We used this term last season. We're going to use it the same year in 21. We're living in a world of imperfect, and you just need to make the best of it. And MB4, Michael Bradley's just like, no more excuses. He doesn't want to hear about anything. He just wants to get on with it. But at the end of the day, Terry, there is some built-in realities, built-in excuses, that you don't want to kind of use as a crutch, but it's the reality of the situation right now.
Let's bring some positives to this. We're pretty much healthy from what we understand. They've got 3 days until the next game. They played late Sunday night. We've had, when we have been fit, but we've had all preseason to prepare for this one game. It's a little bit like that first day of school or your first game in your co-ed league or wherever it is. You have so much adrenaline that adrenaline will actually get you through the most part of the game. We've got a deep bench that you can rely on. So I actually think we'll be okay. And as long as we get through that first 20 minutes, and as you said, it's set up for such an exciting game. And, I think you're going to see two teams really get after it and go for it.
So the 2 legs will be played over the next week. We're looking forward to them both. You can watch on One Soccer, and myself and this man right here are on the call.
We'll try.
Me and you back together. I cannot wait. This is just the appetizer before the main course.
I am so excited, and a big shout out to One Soccer who made it work. I'm going to be up here in Muskoka calling the game. You're going to be in. Are you going to be in the studio or are you at home?
I will be in the studio. So
nice.
Which will be a different experience, but we're dealing with that reality as well of Terry being in quarantine. But we want to make sure that we're both on this all important broadcast as we kick off this TFC season. We just have a couple minutes before we need to go, but some questions came in, Terry, and I want to go through a couple questions. One is the young players coming through. This is from Michael. The young players coming through the program. I'm assuming he's referring to Nelson, Prizo, Akello.
We have enough time to list them all
over the course of this offseason. Yeah, exactly. Peruzza, Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy, of course, has been linked with some big clubs in Europe as well. Which one for you is the most ready? This is what Michael's asking, the most ready to step in and have a significant role in the team this season?
Ooh, good question. From what I've seen, I think Schaffelberg's going to get opportunities. I think he is a perfect fit for what Chris Armas needs, wants. I think the clarity in the structure is a good fit for Schaff, and I can see him getting an early opportunity. I still think big picture, we have a real gem. We have our Alphonso Davies and Jaquil Marshall-Rutty. And
wow.
I think you need to pick your moments to give him opportunities. I think we saw in 20 minutes what he did when he came off the bench and that left foot half volley. But Jaden Nelson can be a game changer, and just with more minutes is going to get better. There's a huge upside to Noble Okello. I think Ralph, he plays like he's 28. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. His left foot brings balance. And I think the fact that he's a two-way midfielder is fantastic for our new system.
Terry, you're pulling the wheel, or you're sitting on the fence and you're naming all the players.
I think, Julian Dunn, he could be a dark horse. He went to Valor, did well. I think he brings qualities as a center back that we don't have in the other quartet. So if he gets an opportunity, you never know. But
I'm going to answer that question. Sign me up for the Priso party. I think in terms of ready-made players, ready to contribute from day one of this season, Ralph Priso is my answer. The young kids.
I think and that's my compliment. Ralph is just almost an established first team player right now. And I think if I'm a midfielder, I'd love to play beside him. He makes you better, and he's still growing, but he's complete right now.
We have two quick ones. These have to be quick answers, Terry, for us to fit them in. Patrick asking, Josie Altidore, what do you expect from him this season? 2 goals last season, Terry. Obviously a massive year for the 31-year-old striker.
I expect an engaged player. I expect to see a player probably with a chip on his shoulder. I think he is... a leader now, and I think he needs to be given that responsibility to really lead both on and off the field. And I think if everything lines up and he's able to stay healthy, there's always that feeling in the back of your mind that you've got the best number 9 in the league. And I'm sure Chris Armas feels like he can help Josie get back to that form. And if Josie can get there, I think there's a bigger picture for him as well. I still think he's the best number 9 in the U.S.
He is engaged. He's been given that leadership role by Armas. I think his head is in the right place. And when Josie approaches things, it's me against the world. That generally means good things for Toronto FC. And that's what we're seeing right now, both on and off the field. I think that means good things for a hungry player on the field.
Don't forget, too, he was highly touted. Like, there was lots of links to Mexico. And I think when he goes down to Leon, and I'm a Leon player looking over in the tunnel at him, I'm like, this guy's
scored against Columbus, too. Against Columbus, too. And finally, what to expect. This is from another Michael F., whoever that is. What to expect from the goalkeeping position this season? Does Bono get a shot?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit tricky. You probably know better than I've been away from this for a little while, for almost a month down in Guadalajara. I'd imagine if I'm Chris Armas now, Q was my number 1, but it's probably 2 keepers duking it out for that number 1 spot. Who's ever been the better keeper through preseason, I think, gets the start. It's as simple as that. And there's maybe a little bit less playing out of the back, which kind of gave Q the nod in Greg's system a little bit. And Greg trusted him, and rightly so. He was fantastic. They're both good goalkeepers, but I just think that whoever duked it out best in preseason will get the start.
Such a position of strength for Toronto FC. I think you hit the nail on the head that there'll be less of a reliance to use that goalkeeper as that sweeper keeper. And with the team playing more direct, I think that really suits an excellent shot stopping goalkeeper who played very well last season when given a chance in Alex Bono. Good stuff. Episode 1 in the books, Terry. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, Wednesday night. It's the pre-match show on One Soccer as TFC takes on Club Leon in the first of 2 in the Concacaf Champions League. We'll be back next week to preview the entire MLS season, as Toronto FC will be in the works to kick off their 2021 regular season campaign. Good to have you back, Dunfield. We'll do this again next week.
Okay, I'll see you on Wednesday, man.
And thanks to the first time, our brand new producer, Erica, for stepping up, stepping in. Jerome, we love you. We miss you. But it's Erica. She's at the wheel right now.
Thanks,
for Erica, I'm Wheels. And for
we'll
Taylor,
get Erica
on
air.
Wheels up. Yeah, one of these days, she will come on air. I am Gareth Wheeler. Welcome to a new season of Come On You Reds.